begins with my mom. She was the most loving person I think I've ever known. She was a great friend and a great mother. She had a very special relationship with me. She was raised by an abusive, alcoholic mother, and just how she was raised was that she was always taking care of her mother. She would drive her home, passed out in the back seat, or whatever ways she had to take care of her, being an alcoholic. There was a time that my mom was with her. It seemed like she was always with her when she would go do her carousing. But there was a home that they were at, and there was a lot of drinking in the home. There was a man that tried to rape my mom. She was just a young girl. She would regularly come home and beat my mom just for no other reason except that she was drunk and she had no control of herself. She would pull her out of her bed just to begin beating her. Obviously, somebody in that situation would look for love in other places. So my mom found herself pregnant at age 15 with my brother. And my grandma refused to allow her to bring him home. She said that, if you come home, you don't have a place to live. So my mom moved away from home, and she found a man that would marry her, and she was pregnant again and had my sister at age 16. Well, this was an abusive relationship also. A few years later, she had met my father and married him, and then she had me. But this was not the ideal relationship. She obviously was falling into a pattern of not healthy relationships. So they ended up divorcing, and she remarried my sister and brother's dad. And he adopted me, and I took his last name, and that's who I knew as Dad all growing up. That, of course, failed, and she had many failed marriages throughout the years. She just really did not feel worthy to marry someone who could see what she was worth. She didn't feel worthy enough to wait for that person that God had set aside for her. So she just fell into this pattern of abusive relationships, and that's what I knew. Of course, this took a toll on my life, and I became this rebellious teenager. I'd sneak out and drink. I treated my mom really badly, even though she was not abusive to me. She was a great mother to me, but I treated her horribly, just not being obedient and sneaking out and drinking and just, So my drinking over time became heavier and heavier. I had a friend that I was always getting in trouble with, and one night I was supposed to go spend the night at another friend's home, and I was hanging out with my trouble friend in the meantime, and couldn't reach the other friend I was supposed to stay with. So to pass the time, I thought I would go with some other people and go to whatever party they were going to. And my friend, who was always getting me in trouble, told me to go home, and I didn't listen. But the Holy Spirit speaks to us in ways that we just could never expect or imagine. And she wasn't serving the Lord, and I was not certainly serving the Lord. But I know, looking back, that was the Holy Spirit trying to warn me. She tried to tell me to go home. So I'm not really sure at what point I started drinking that evening, but I ended up somewhere I had no idea where I was or how I got there. It eventually occurred to me that I should call my mom and check in. So called her, and she of course knew I wasn't with my friend where I was supposed to be, because she had gotten a call from my friend. Hey, where's Jenny? So I had to tell her, I was with. So she came and picked me up and immediately could smell the alcohol just reeking on me. And she called the police and she told them, if you take anybody, make sure to take her. I had put myself in a really bad situation by being there, by being drunk out of my mind, and someone took advantage of that opportunity because I was alone and drunk. And I may lose some friends right now, but I'm going to give you my thoughts on drinking. So this is my 2 cents. Ephesians 5:18, and we hear pastors say it all the time. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. Debauchery is all kinds of sin. All kinds of sin. So, don't do that. Be filled with the Spirit instead. Our pastor does not set our standard for what is right and wrong. Jesus set the standard, the ultimate standard. He said in Matthew 5:21, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. And in verse 27, you have heard it said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has committed adultery with her in his heart. Jesus set the standard. I didn't write it down, but there's also the Old Testament scriptures say that the priests were not to drink alcohol of any kind. It was not even to touch their lips. And later in the New Testament, it refers to us as a royal priesthood. That's how serious it is. The title that we have as Christ followers is that we are a royal priesthood. That's how he considers us. We're not to drink. And like I said, I may lose friends. But again, my standard is set by Jesus. I try. Anyway. So time went by, and I had to tell my mom what had happened that night because I had found myself pregnant. I knew from the very moment that I found out I was pregnant that abortion was not an option. My mom taught me better than that. At least I knew that much. So I would pray. When I would wake up in the morning, oh, God, please tell me that was just a bad dream. I will change my life. God, please just rescue me from this. And I would wake up and there it was. This big belly on a 15-year-old. It's 15, by the way. Same age as my mom was. I was very ashamed and embarrassed because everyone at school didn't know what the story was. They just assumed the worst. So, how rumors are, that spread quickly and made a name for myself. So an amazing thing happened though during my pregnancy. I stopped drinking immediately. I just knew drinking while pregnant was bad for the baby. But this was really difficult because I had a stepbrother living at home who was an alcoholic, and he had liquor around all the time, so it was really hard to overcome the cravings when they came on. Just the smell of it would put me into a craving. But I had made the choice for the life of my baby. My mom took me to all of my doctor appointments, and we had a close time there where we grew and healed in our relationship. It's funny to me that when you grow into a right relationship with the person that's in authority in your life, how you have peace. And peace just comes because you're doing the right thing. There was no more fighting between us. Our relationship was healing because I was falling under her authority. Isaiah 57:17 says, this is is God speaking about his people. I was enraged by his sinful greed. I punished him and hid my face in anger, yet he kept on with his willful ways. I've seen his ways, but I will heal him. I will guide him and restore comfort to him, creating praise on the lips of the mourners in Israel. Peace, peace to those far and near, says the Lord. I will heal them. But the wicked are like the tossing sea, which cannot rest, whose waves cast up mire and mud. There is no peace, says my God, for the wicked. And I think that's evident in the way we live sometimes. Just when we're not living right, we don't have peace. So I made the decision early on in my pregnancy that I would give the baby up for adoption. And when the time came for me to give birth, I knew that I didn't want to hold the baby because that would be very emotional. I watched several birthing videos with my mom and went to breathing classes with her, and I could see that that was very emotional for a new mother. So I didn't want to hold him, but I had a big room with glass all the way across, and they put him behind a curtain over here, and I could see the light over his little warming bed in the reflection of the window, and I could see the arms and legs. In a couple of days, I think you have to wait 48 hours to sign any adoption papers. The agency brought me the paperwork in the hospital and couldn't sign them. I wasn't prepared for that yet. So they gave me another option. They said I could put him in foster care for 30 days while I was making my decision, and I thought that sounds reasonable, sounds wise. So I did that. I put him in foster care, but I went home, and for just a couple of days I just couldn't stand the way I had left him there in the hospital. I just felt like I had abandoned him. I mean, he would have never known, but I knew, and I just didn't like the way that I left him. So I had the agency bring him to me. My mom was very supportive in any decision I would make. Obviously, with the way my grandma did not accept her pregnancy, and my brother, she was not going to be that way with me, and I think she would have made a different decision if she didn't feel forced to do so. She kept my brother because she felt like she was being forced. So she didn't want to do that with me. She let me make my decision, but she supported me in anything I decided. But she did make it very clear to me. She worked 2 jobs. She could not raise a baby for me. This was my responsibility. I had put myself in this situation, and I had to take care of it. So the agency brought the baby to me, but now my mom was in full grandma mode. She taught me how to feed him, and how to change him, how to bathe him, how to dress him. I had friends telling me, because I had other friends who had gotten in trouble for whatever reasons, oh, hey, I can watch your baby on a Friday night, and then the next weekend you can watch my baby on a Friday night, and we can still go party and have fun and just carry on with our lives as normal. But they weren't the ones having to get up in the middle of the night to feed my baby and to take care of him. So while that sounded all glamorous and everything, I still decided my decision needed to be to give him up for adoption. It was just a reality check for me. I had him home a total of 5 days, and I realized there's no way I can go to school, get a job, hire a babysitter and pay for that. When would I ever see this child? How could I give him the things that he deserves? So I had made my decision and called the agency back, and at that point, we were really broke. My mom didn't have a working phone, so I asked her on her way to work, would you call the agency for me today? And she just said no. If you want to go that route, you're going to have to find a phone and make that call yourself. She was obviously devastated. So I had had to walk next door and ask the neighbor to use their phone and call the agency to come and get the baby. They brought the paperwork and I signed it, and that was it. My mom wanted no part of that. So we both grieved for several months. I didn't realize at that time that this was a loss that I needed to grieve. And my mom and I, we had grown so close together, and I would go in her room and sit on the edge of her bed and we would just talk, and we would look at each other and just burst out in tears. And it didn't help that just a couple of weeks after I gave him up for adoption, we had to put my dog to sleep. So that just made things that much worse. She was my baby dog. So not long after that, just about 5 or 6 months later, my stepbrother by now was getting in so much trouble with his drinking that he was court-ordered to go to a treatment facility for 30 days. And as a family, we all had to go every day because addiction does not affect only one person. It affects the entire family because it either hurts them or we enable them or what have you. It affects everyone. That's just what sin does. So in that process of the daily counseling with our family, I realized why it was so hard for me to quit drinking those months ago. And I realized at that point that I had become an alcoholic. I had to make the decision to stop drinking because I felt like it was the right thing to do. But I promise you, if that had not happened to me, I would not have stopped drinking on my own. So at this point, I was having a lot of depression setting in. It was about 6 months after I had given the baby up for adoption, and so just depression was coming in pretty strong. I think I had pushed it down for a while, not realizing what I was dealing with. So through the treatment center, they were able to refer us to a psychiatrist who put me on some medication to help me out. But after a couple weeks, I just realized, and my mom was taking antidepressants for a lot of years, I just realized I'll be depending on this the rest of my life. So I decided to stop taking the pills and rely on the Lord for my strength. During this time, just right after I had given the baby up for adoption, I got saved. I needed something. I didn't quite know what, but when I was at church, I realized I needed God. So I decided to, instead of rely on those drugs for my joy, that I would rely on the Lord. And in John 14:27, it says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." So what this world had to offer was not going to solve my problem. Only Jesus could. So I want to tell you more about my life. That's a big part of who I am, but there's more to it. I'm thankful for a praying mother. She prayed for a godly man to come into my life. And God was faithful to that. So years later, I met Rob, and he's back there helping me out tonight. We knew right away, first date, that we wanted to get married. It was just right, it was God's timing, and we just knew. So we dated for a whopping 2 months, and we got married. We eloped, and that's all romantic and everything it was. My mom wasn't too happy about that. Told me to never do that. She literally hit me with paper. So, were able to announce that we were pregnant. My mom was very excited because this was the moment we had been waiting for several years, for that joy to be returned to us. God had promised to me, and people told me one after another, God is going to bless you someday for your decision that you've made. And he did. So this was a really exciting time for my mom and I both. This was going to be the first child that she could but watch one of her children raise. So she only knew for about a week that I was pregnant, and she had already gone shopping. Didn't waste any time. She was pretty excited. So everything was going well, and then suddenly I got a call that she was in the hospital, unconscious, for an unknown reason. I drove frantically to the hospital. I had a friend at work telling me, be careful, think about your baby, you're pregnant. Drove like crazy to the hospital. And that's where they told us that she had had an aneurysm in her brain. And there was no hope for her recovery. I found out later that she had not taken her afternoon school bus route because she was not feeling well. She was dealing with a bladder infection, and it caused her to not be able to use the bathroom. And when she got to the hospital, her bladder was distended, and while she was there in the hospital, she fell unconscious. If she had chosen to take that bus route in the afternoon, there's no telling what would have happened to the number of children on that bus. Amazingly though, still, she drove herself to the hospital. God protected her and everyone that she was driving around until she got there. My mom was only 44 years old when she passed away. I was 22 and pregnant with my first baby that I was going to keep. I kept telling Rob how unfair it was. This was the first baby she was going to get to see grow up of one of her children. Now, my brother had children, but she couldn't have much of a relationship with him because of his drug and alcohol use. And my sister had had many pregnancies that she had aborted. So she was really excited about this pregnancy for me, and I was happy for her. But I kept telling Rob this wasn't fair, and why did this happen now? Why now? But he gave me the most comforting words I've ever heard. He said, this is not where things are made fair. There will be a day when God makes everything right. And if you're looking for things to be made right here on this earth, you are going to be sadly disappointed. This life is unfair, and God never promised it would be easy. And if this is what the thing is, where things get made right, that'd be a pretty pathetic heaven. So I was so thankful at that time for the healed relationship that I had with my mom. It gave me such great peace to know that. And I had very little regret during that time. The only regret I had was I was just by her house a couple of days before doing some garage sailing with my sister, and my mom's house was right around the corner. And I almost stopped by, but it was getting late in the day, and I decided to drive on home. So, Vicki, you make every moment count, don't you? I have other family that don't have such peace. They're filled with anger and resentment, and they blame to this day. And that was 16 years ago. Can you imagine living with such unrest? Carrying blame and resentment and frustration at someone who passed away 16 years ago? Well, we do. God gives us a way out of that, though. He gives us peace. It's a gift, and we have to receive it. It's there for the taking. He's a peace giver, a life changer, a joy river, a comforter. Matthew 4:36 says, Jesus was leaving the crowd with his disciples. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him up and said, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Peace, be still." Then the winds died down, and it was completely calm. He said to the disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Peace doesn't mean that we won't have storms and that we won't have trouble. Peace is what he gives us to get through those times in the midst of the storm. He sees us hurting. He sees it. But God is sitting there, and we're thinking, how can he be so calm and peaceful when I'm sitting here drowning? How can he just, okay. And here's why. It's because for him, this is on replay. He knows the ending. Okay, he's got a TiVo. Rewind, play, what's wrong with you? This is going to turn out fine. Don't worry about it. Where's your faith? So shortly after my mom's passing, I made contact with my real dad. I had not seen him since I was a baby. I didn't know who he was. I thought he should know about my mom's passing because she was a part of his life at one time. We had a really nice reunion. I got to meet family that I didn't know before, and our relationship grew, and we exchanged emails. He was at the time living in Texas, so we didn't get to see each other a whole lot. But once again, I was stricken with grief because only 5 years after meeting my real dad, I lost him to a massive heart attack, and he was only 56 years old. At this point, I was 28. I was comforted, though, because I had gotten the chance to know him. I have no regrets. I got to meet him, and I got to know where I got my artistic ability. He's an amazing artist. I can't even imagine I could ever be like him. And I'm about to start snotting. Got to find out where I got my curly blonde hair and my blue eyes. So I have no regrets there. I have peace because I got to know my dad before he passed away. Rob and I have also been through many trials ourselves. We spent 14 years of our marriage, and we've been married almost 17. We spent 14 years of our marriage in court battles with his ex-wife over Josh and Ashley. Those are my stepchildren. Josh doesn't go here. Justin, the younger one, is ours. But there was much strife and discord over the years. But God was still working in that storm. We had to humble ourselves and realize where the attack was coming from. It was coming from the devil. And he knows that the best way to destroy children is to cause upheaval between the parents. And it doesn't have to be with an ex-wife or an ex-husband. It can be in your own home. Proverbs 15:18 says, "Hot tempers start fights, but a cool, calm spirit keeps the peace." In recent years, just a few years ago, we had a miraculous healing in that relationship with her. We call each other and pray together. She God did that. There's nothing we could have done. But I tell you, God used us because he humbled us first. And he was able to work through that humble heart. And we've all been changed because of it. And here, just a couple of years ago, we lost one of the greatest saints of God, Rob's mom. She was the strength and the super glue and the spiritual compass of our family. She had adopted me and my sister-in-law, Tanya. She's here tonight, thank you. She adopted us as her own. It was early on in our marriage that I lost my mom, and she took me on and treated me just like her own. And in fact, she called Rob and Scott the son-in-laws. She'd get mad at Dad if he brought home, greeting cards that said to son and daughter-in-law. She would not allow that. It had to be daughter and son-in-law on the card. No joke. That's just how it was. Love Mom. But praise God, the whole family was there when she passed. It was several years coming, so it wasn't sudden like it was with my mom. She went on to be with the Lord in the most peaceful way. And yes, we still grieve when we have loss, but God can be a great comfort in those times of sorrow. He will hold us, and he will carry us through. Looking back over my life, and I've shared a lot with you, and there's still more I could tell you. God was in every situation. There's no denying that at all. John 14:27 says, "The peace I give you is a gift the world cannot give." We try, we find our own methods of having peace and tranquility, but there's nothing like the peace that our peace giver can give us. When I'm trying to understand the meaning of a word, I like to look at the definition, but then I also like to look at the opposite words. Peace, according to our dictionary, is accord, friendship, love, order, unity, calm, serenity, tranquility, stability. What peace is not is discord, disagreement, strife, unrest, upheaval, battle, warfare, and conflict. Of course, these are the world's definitions. But like I said, he gives us peace that the world cannot give. He wants to give you peace. It's a gift. You can try to run from your troubles, and you can try to drink it away. You can wallow in self-pity and enjoy your depression. But his peace is from the Holy Spirit, and it's supernatural. We can't figure it out on our own. I don't sing, just sing. I have a song that I'm not singing. So you can just feel free to worship, enter in if you want to.
sorrows like sea billows roll. Whatever my lot, you have taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well through the storm I am held. It is well with my soul. My sin, oh the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin, not in part, but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well through the storm I am held. It is well with my soul. It is well. God has won, Christ prevailed. It is well with my And Lord, haste the day when the faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well through the storm I am held. It is well with my soul. It is well. God has won, Christ prevailed. It is well with my Save the rest is my soul.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to open these altars for anybody who feels like you need just lay it at the altar. It's open. We've got some music we're going to play just so you can worship, and we'll pray with you up here if you need it.